My name is Courtney Pimentel, and this is my Communications-100 video. This is me. I'm a hardworking mom of 3 boys. I am currently the only income my family has, and I have been since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. Being the person that my family relies on to provide food and shelter has showed me a responsibility that I never quite understood before. Before I had children, I was known to overspend on things that I did not need in the first place. There were times that I would spend so much money that by the end of the month my balance would be in the negative. Being the head of my household and knowing that I need to have money just so that my family can eat has taught me how to properly budget money and know where my spending limits are. It has helped me to reconsider things that I pick up at the store, like, do I really need that? Returning to school, especially in an online type of environment, has taught me self-discipline, which is something else that I had problems learning to do when I was much younger. I have learned to better manage my time and be sure that I meet deadlines. Self-control and self-discipline are 2 areas in my life that I struggled with as a child and a young adult, and that has a lot to do with how I was raised as a child. Growing up, both my parents worked full-time jobs, so I stayed with my grandparents the majority of the time. I give them full credit for raising me, and not only were they the only ones that raised me, I was also the only grandchild. My grandparents put me on the highest pedestal you could think of. They did everything for me. If I had a problem, they took care of it. I did not have to do a thing. My self-esteem at this time was extremely high, and I became a very selfish and highly dependent person. As I got a little older, around the age of 7, I realized that my grandparents were unable to help me with everything. Also about this time, my self-esteem and perception of the world began to change. I started to get bullied by my classmates and peers. I would mention it to my grandparents, but they would always tell me that they were just jealous and to turn the other cheek. My grandparents were very conservative and religious people and tried to raise me the same way. They would always tell me God would take care of it. I believed them and prayed every night that it would stop, but it just continued to progressively get worse. The bullying followed me all the way to middle school. At this point, my self-esteem was at its lowest, and I became what people call a loner. I was quiet, and I did not talk unless I was spoken to. I stayed to myself, and I sat as far away from others as I possibly could get. I also began to compare myself to other girls around me and thought I would never be as pretty as them. I will never be as popular or cool as them. I will always be ugly. I will be alone for the rest of my life. During this dark time in my life, I turned to writing. Writing became a hobby of mine because it was the only way I could find an outlet for my emotions. I typically wrote depressing and morbid stories. The stories were the feelings that defined who I was at that time. I was depressed. I hated my life. I hated who I was. And I just wanted to be somebody else. Also during this time in my life, the perception of the world that my grandparents planted into my head began to unravel. The Christian belief that God would make everything better if you prayed and believed in Him was not working for me. My faith in Christianity began to wither away, and how I perceived those around me began to change. It had gotten to where I became a very suspicious individual. I did not trust anybody who tried to communicate with me or befriend me because I had that nagging thought in the back of my head that they were just trying to find a way to embarrass and humiliate me in front of my peers. This attitude I presented towards individuals who tried to speak to me only pushed them away. I remained mostly nonverbal, but I did question their intentions. I questioned why were they talking to me and what was it that they wanted. Unfortunately, because I was suspicious of those around me, I got the reputation of being a very angry and rude individual. Still to this day, I have the same cold exterior that people mistake for being snobby, but it's not that I am an unfriendly person. It is because I went through a lot of humiliation as a child. However, there are 3 people in my life that can break down that cold exterior I present and know the person I am underneath all that extra baggage. And they are my 2 best friends and my husband. My husband is also the person who has helped me become the woman I am today. When we first met, he knew I was that dependent child my grandparents raised me to be. And he knew that I had no self-control or self-discipline. He knew that I needed help. And he did help me by forcing me to handle my own problems. He refused to help me unless he knew that there was a problem that needed more than one brain. He makes me think through my problems and discourages me from asking for reassurance. He has also given me the opportunity to show self-control by allowing me to be the breadwinner in the family and being the family's sole provider. My husband's way of teaching me to grow up has made me more confident in myself than I have ever been before. It is because of him that I am slowly healing from my unfortunate childhood. I give him all the credit for who I am today, and because he has done so much for me mentally, I believe that all of this was a part of God's plan. Maybe God gave me that childhood because he knew I would be a much stronger and confident woman in the end by having to go through everything I went through. Self-discipline, self-control, strength, and confidence, these traits that I have discovered over my life's journey, will come to good use when I am preparing for a major assignment or essay for class. I will have the ability to sit down and think the assignment through and submit it with confidence because I know I put my best foot forward. These traits will also be useful within my future career as well because deadlines will need to be met and I will need to be confident in myself if I want to provide my best possible work.